Hi. This message is for my Jehovah's Witness family. Now, if you've stumbled across this unfortunately public message and you're a normal friend or family member, or worse, a professional colleague, please feel free to click the X now before you learn much more about me than you really want to know. So, why is this public? Well, it's because I've been disfellowshipped from the Jehovah's Witnesses for the past 18 years or so, and my former friends and family actively shun me for the most part. Now, in this video, you're going to notice a lot of what I call Jehovah's Witness isms or JW isms. They have kind of their own language or definition for common words that carry a different meaning when you're talking to them. So I'll explain those in case you're going to watch this all the way through, which I really hope you don't. Anyway, so disfellowshipping is basically excommunication, only slightly more extreme. You have to be baptized as a Jehovah's Witness to be disfellowshipped, and that's going to be important to remember later. Now, I've had lifelong friends who've literally turned their back on me when I walk down the aisle, say in the grocery store, toward them. I've had blood relatives who were close to me before I was disfellowshipped actually act afraid because I spoke to them without being shamed. And also, it has been 18 years, so this is not new. But right now, there's apparently some controversy over what I post on Facebook, even though most of them won't even accept a Facebook friend request from me. It's kind of silly. But basically, I was turned out of the closed community I grew up in with very few life skills and very few options. And the fact that I survived is pretty darn amazing when it comes down to it. Yes, I did make some epically stupid decisions, and I did some pretty spectacularly dumb things, but that's another story for another time. And there's a couple of my family members who haven't completely shunned me, and to them, I will be eternally grateful. And there are also those who've kind of tolerated me more recently in order to see my children. I've allowed this with some misgivings because I don't want my children, I want them to know their family, but I don't want them indoctrinated. So that's a little sticky. Anyway, so when I do see my relatives, I invariably get cornered, well-meaning that they are. They want to bring me back into the truth. That's a little JWism for you there. That's what they call the religion, the truth. So it's really that much harder to reject. What, you don't believe in the truth? What is wrong with you? That sort of thing. And those conversations are uncomfortable at best, and they're particularly difficult for me because while the Jehovah's Witness in the conversation is able to vent their feelings and say what they want to say, I'm not allowed to, and I never have been. In the last 18 years, I haven't been able to tell my side. There might be a little bit of a show of listening, but really, the instant that I say something that doesn't jive with their worldview or is critical of their religion, they're going to shut down. And I'm just supposed to listen and not say anything when I disagree. Now, if you know me at all, you know exactly how hilariously impossible that's going to be for me. But why is this an issue? Well, there's another JWism for you. It's apostasy. Now, in the real world, an apostate is defined as a person whose religious or political beliefs have changed, right? Somebody changed their mind. But if you're a Jehovah's Witness, an apostate with a capital A is a lot more than that. According to them, apostates are evil. They're in league with the devil. They're set on destroying Jehovah's Witnesses. Their literature even refers to apostates as mentally diseased. I was told by my mother that apostasy is an unforgivable sin. Now, here's a spoiler alert for you Jehovah's Witnesses from somebody who's been out here in the real world for a long time. There are very few actual apostates, by your definition. There are plenty of pissed off, hurt people, thousands of them, but they're not evil. They're really not interested in destroying anything. Even if they were, they pretty much can't organize themselves out of a wet paper bag, so I don't think the Watchtower Society has anything to worry about from apostates. Trust me on that. Now, if you're going by the real world actual definition of the word apostate, being someone who's changed their mind, then yeah, you could probably call me that. But if you're going to go by the Jehovah's Witness code version, then no, that really doesn't fit. First of all, I don't even believe in the devil. You might as well say I'm in league with the lizard man, or Voldemort. I really could care less about destroying anybody's faith. I mean, if it helps you through life, then by all means have at it. And I'm most definitely not mentally diseased, though I do think that that little turn of phrase is particularly egregious and arrogant and wildly offensive. Um, I'm crazy because I disagree with you. Right. Okay. Sure. So anyway, when I get dragged kicking and screaming into a religious discussion with my relatives and I say anything that I might actually think or feel, I'm very likely to be labeled as an apostate, which means that I cross over from being someone who's just too stupid to see the light to somebody who's actively evil. And yet they ask me these questions that I really, I feel like they need to be answered. So this message is public because I want to answer them whether they're listening or not. So if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, once again, or a formerly Jehovah's Witness family member, then you can go now. See you later. Bye. Because this message is for my Jehovah's Witness family. Now, first of all, I am not intending to start a religious or scriptural debate. As you'll see, I have absolutely no interest in doing that. This is really an appeal to your human decency and your common sense. Call it a call to arms in the cause of love, if you want to. Over the years, our conversations have been very infrequent, and usually it's at some sort of major life event like a funeral, which is already fraught. It makes things a lot more uncomfortable because I really never know how you're going to treat me. Overwhelmingly, these experiences are negative from the get-go because, let's face it, I'm invited to the funerals and not the weddings. Very few people speak to me at all except to shake their finger in my face and tell me, get back to the truth immediately. And, there are those that are downright scandalized if I say something out loud, like I should have been stricken mute when I was disfellowshipped or something. Sorry, didn't happen. I'm just expected to be there with everybody staring at me, but not take part in the conversation, just actively shunned and publicly shamed, which is pretty appalling, actually. And you can't really explain it unless you've experienced it. But that sort of thing, it sticks with you, especially when you have absolutely no positive interactions to counteract it with. Now, at first, I accepted this behavior as normal because I didn't know any better. It might not be as horrible for somebody disfellowshipped who actually believes that they deserve it, but I really never did. I really believed the whole Jehovah's Witness party line about how they treat people so much better than worldly, that's non-Jehovah's Witness people. For those of you still listening, go away. No, I had only ever been exposed to the Jehovah's Witness community, but then I gradually learned that everything that I had been told about the world was pretty much utter and complete malarkey. And I learned that because I've been lucky enough to marry into this huge family that is really every bit as serious and devout in their various faiths, lacks thereof, in some cases, causes many things as you are. They're just as serious as you are. But unlike my Jehovah's Witness family, they are always kind and always accepting, no matter how much they may dislike another family member's choices or their politics or whatever. They're still family. And I have to say that I owe the Fisters and the Lashoots a huge debt of gratitude because really they have shown me what love looks like. And I didn't know before. So sure, yeah, people have disagreements and they don't get along. Nobody's perfect, but Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm telling you right now, your ideas about the rest of the world are 100% unequivocally false. So, after I got pregnant with my first son, probably about 5 years ago now, things kind of started to change, and some of you started to inexplicably treat me like a human being again. I mean, you actually kind of started being nice. And that has actually been a little bit harder than the shunning for me, because after everything that's happened, including all the years of being treated like some sort of pariah, I don't particularly trust you. I'll be honest about that. And number two, look, I know it's all conditional. I know you want to see my kids. It isn't about me. If I didn't have children, you would still be refusing to speak to me. It is what it is. Now, I admit my kids are pretty great. I can't say I blame you there. But you really have to know how really unnecessary and how hurtful this whole thing is. I mean, I'm afraid to be even the slightest bit comfortable with any of you because I know this isn't real. It's not for me. It's not real. See, the thing is, I love my family and I always have. And I'm not the one who decided not to be part of your lives. My door's always been open. You are the ones who've decided that the dictates of your religion, be they unfair and arbitrary, because some of you have admitted that to me, are more important than actual flesh and blood people in your family. I mean, I was, admittedly, was and still am a very headstrong woman. But neither of the reasons for my disfellowshipping really should ever have had anything to do with any of you. The fact is that you accepted the unqualified opinions of some men that you may or may not know over me. And nobody ever asked me why or what happened. Was I okay? Nothing. I'm sorry. That's abnormal. That's fundamentally not okay. That is messed up. Okay? Especially since my sister, who was lucky enough never to have been baptized, by your standards has done far worse things than I ever did. But she's fully accepted and loved and supported by all of you. Now, I'm not bagging on her. More power to her for being smarter than I was when it came to inappropriate commitments. I mean, for real. But surely, you've got to see the hypocrisy here. Don't you? Just a little bit? Okay, also my baptism, which is the core issue here, took place well before I was really old enough to take a drink or drive a car or enter a contract or get married or pretty much anything of any importance. But apparently I was old enough to enter an irrevocable religious agreement that has effectively destroyed my entire family, all of my foundation relationships. I was 12. I was heavily coerced. Did I have any idea what I was getting into? Oh, hell no. I was just trying to prove that I was worthy of your love and maybe alleviate a little bit of the pressure that was being cranked up by my mother. Why? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So, another spoiler alert for those non-family members who may still be with us, despite my best advice. I was disfellowshipped for several reasons. And I'm telling you this because it's relevant, believe it or not. So, I need to point out here that when I was disfellowshipped, I had not attended a Jehovah's Witness meeting or gone out in service for over 18 months. Now, out in service is door-to-door ministry. I was not calling myself a Jehovah's Witness. Because you see, even though witnesses encourage people who join them to resign from their old churches, they themselves actually do not have a mechanism for doing that. Once you're baptized, you can't get out without losing everything. There is no walking away. Now, let me be clear about one thing. I did not then, and I do not now, want to be a Jehovah's Witness. Period. Full stop. Now, most people are disfellowshipped for fornication. Because let's be honest, at 20 years old, I slept with my boyfriend. I did. For bonus points, I didn't lie about it when they asked me. Good luck finding another 20-year-old virgin in the USA. I know there weren't any in my congregation. But I was the only one disfellowshipped that I know of. Even though one of the brothers on my judicial committee had an unmarried daughter who gave birth about a week or so, 2 weeks after my disfellowshipping. Same situation as me, just a little more concrete proof. Not disfellowshipped. No, not at all. I'm not mad. More power to her, like I said. But I do have to question the inconsistency of the divine justice here. The second reason for my disfellowshipping was because I had scintillating scotoma, which is commonly known as visual migraines. Now, I didn't know this at the time. I just knew that I saw these weird colors and auras and weird lights and shadows and stuff all the time. I mean, literally almost all the time. And I had these awful headaches. And unfortunately for me, this was around the same time that a blockbuster book came out called The Celestine Prophecy. And in that book, the author talked about seeing auras as some sort of metaphysical thing that you could learn to do, blah, 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 blah. And also, unfortunately for me, I had been preconditioned my entire life to look for supernatural causes to things rather than rational ones. Geez, this is embarrassing. But anyway, so I thought, and apparently the elders thought too, so it wasn't just me. I thought it was something else. One of the brothers in my judicial committee actually called me a witch. They all said I was demonized, which is another JW-ism if you're still here and shouldn't be. And it means that you're basically possessed. I am not kidding. Now, this was in the late 90s, the 1990s, not the 1590s. But later on, a year or so later, I went to a doctor finally and found out that this is an actual medical condition. I got some medication, got sent to a therapist, have not had one of those episodes in well over 10 years. And I think only one. So before that, I went about 5 or 6 years without one. Then I had one, and it's been 10 years since that. So yeah, sex and headaches. Last time I checked, not an appropriate reason to be rejected by everyone you know. Just FYI. Now, anyway, I think that's important to really think about, because the situation is a bit different than disfellowshippings are often painted. But anyway, so I'm just going to talk about maybe some of the common themes that always come up when we talk. So I could spend a lot more time on every one of these, and I'm trying to keep it brief, trust me. So the first one, the discussions always start with something along the lines of, well, the Bible says. Now, let's get real for a second. After leaving the Witnesses, I went to a Southern Baptist college. Now, not for religious reasons, obviously, because I just went because it was local and I needed educating. So one of the requirements there was 6 credit hours of religion. So I took Bible history and learned that every translation and retranslation of the Bible is just a little bit different. Yours, family, is a little bit more different than some others. But when you learn about the actual history of the Bible, just in general, though, the way the canon came together, and it's really hard to continue believing that it's the unadulterated word of God. Just, no. I tried harder than most people to be a believer. I really did. I wanted to believe. But that's another story. And I'm not even talking about the wacky history of the New World Translation at all. I haven't even touched that. I just don't believe that the Bible has any particular relevance to my life at all. And I don't believe that it was divinely inspired, because let's be honest, I don't believe in God. That's another story too. But there you go. This is sort of coming out for me, really, because I don't think I've ever said it publicly before, but there it is. But if you really, really feel the need for at least one scriptural argument here, then I've got one for you. So this is Matthew 9:13, and Jesus said, "Go then and learn what this means. I want mercy and not sacrifice, for I came to call not righteous people, but sinners." Now, if you think about it just a little bit, I think you'll agree that my situation has been much more sacrifice than mercy from day one. Okay. Number 2. Somebody always says this. You knew the rules that apply to all of Jehovah's people. Disfellowshipping is Jehovah's loving discipline for his sheep. No, it isn't. It isn't discipline, and it isn't loving. It is a profound denial of my rights as a human being. It is dead wrong on every level. And more than that, is directly counter to the very thing that it's supposed to accomplish, which is making a sinner want to return to the flock. I mean, really, honestly, it makes me think so much less of you than I really want to. I want to believe that you are smart, decent people, because I love you. But disfellowshipping really makes you look and act like jerks. It does, especially since the rules are not consistently applied even by the same body of elders, within the same congregation, within a few months of each other. For a group of people that are so concerned about what people on the outside think about them, ostracizing people for trivial reasons seems like a really dumb thing to do, as is the failure to properly report child molestation in the congregation, but we'll get to that. Basically, disfellowshipping is a means of control. It's nothing more, nothing less. It keeps you from hearing anyone who disagrees with you. So on to number 3. Somebody always says this too. The Witnesses are the only true religion. Who will you go away to? You don't have to understand it, just believe it. Now, here's another spoiler alert for you. I don't have to have somewhere to go away to, i.e. another religion. There is no true religion. This type of argument is commonly known as a false dichotomy or a false dilemma. It's a black and white either or choice that leaves out all gray area and all other options. So what you're saying to me is that I'm either Jehovah's Witness or I'm wrong, and that I have to provide a better alternative to the witness's religion or else concede that you're the best because there has to be one true religion, right? No, wrong. There are lots of different faith communities. Some of them are good, some of them are not, some of them are indifferent. All of them think that they're right. What your question here is leaving out is the fact that there are people who don't need or want faith in their lives and they live fine, moral lives. I know because I'm one of them. Religion is not necessary in order to be a moral person. I can love you without agreeing with you. I don't need to be afraid of Armageddon or death or anticipation of some new system to motivate me to be a good person. Because you know what? Nobody does. Neither do you. We can be good without all this bullshit. Look, here's the bottom line. You can believe anything you want. Fine by me. In fact, if it enriches your life and it does not involve hurting anyone, I am all for it. Disfellowshipping, however, hurts people. It hurts me. It hurts my children. And therefore, it is not moral and it is not ethical. Your beliefs and your feelings, however sincere they might be, they don't give you the right to judge anyone else or to mete out discipline to people who are not under your authority. Last time I checked, I was not under your authority. You don't have the right to impose your beliefs on anyone else. And a relationship with your own blood relatives is not and should never be cast as an epic battle between good and evil. Mom, I'm talking to you. The fact is that over the past 18 or 20 years, I've been able to count on non-Jehovah's Witnesses friends, in-laws, complete strangers more than I've been able to count on you. So the question for me is not, where will you go away to, but actually, what would I go back to? Sure, I've got some good memories from knowing you as a kid, but we've missed more time together than we've had at this point. And honestly, we don't know each other. And that sucks. That's terrible. And the last thing, the thing about you don't have to understand to just believe, that is an insult to my intelligence and yours. It's not because I'm too stupid to understand. I just disagree. And I don't want to talk about all the reasons why because it freaks you out. I really don't want to debate scripture. Like I said, to me, it's like debating the deep spiritual truth of SpongeBob SquarePants or something. So, here we are at an impasse. Don't we have better things to do? Which brings us to number 4, the end is near. Think of your children. And this one really gets me. I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't believe in it. I don't believe the end is coming. There are a lot of reasons for that, starting with the availability of information that just didn't exist years ago. There aren't more disasters, we just hear about them. And also the fact that I think that living in fear is a really bad way to go through life. But keeping people in a constant state of fear is a really good way to control them. You think? So let's be crystal clear about one thing. I am thinking about my children. Their safety and their well-being is my number one priority. I do not think that door-to-door ministry is safe. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's reasonable to expect small children to sit in silence for hours at multiple meetings every week, to stay up past their bedtime so they can be at the Kingdom Hall. I don't think your religion adequately protects children from a lot of things that they really need to be protected from. There are so many reasons why I don't ever want my kids to grow up Jehovah's Witness that I could spend hours on that topic alone. But the main thing here boils down to this. You cannot convince me that a benevolent God would kill those 2 precious babies because their parents don't agree with you. That is utter bullshit. And even if it were true, that kind of God would not be worth worshiping. He would be immoral, utterly immoral. And the fact that you can't see that makes me kind of ill. It really does. And even leaving the kids out of the equation, living a lie out of fear of Armageddon certainly is not an option for me, because isn't God supposed to be all-knowing? So if I faked it, he would theoretically know, right? I want my relationships to be based on love and respect and mutual regard, not lies and coercion and manipulation. So I'm not willing to live my life under a regime of control that I completely disagree with in order to have relationships. I can't just switch it off. I can't just do what I'm told. I've never been good at that. You might remember. Which brings us to, finally, the final thing that is always said. You know what's right and wrong. Come back to the truth. Just come back to the truth and everything will be fine. No, it won't. I'm sorry, because this is not love. This is continuing abuse. It's not acceptable. You don't even know me after shunning me for almost 2 decades. How can you even say that? You think that only your feelings matter? Things would be A-okay with you if I just got reinstated. What about my feelings? Do you think that I can just flip a switch and all of a sudden it's like, oh, nothing ever happened. I'm just magically forget all the pain that's been caused by this? One of you told me recently how easily I could get reinstated right now because I'm not doing anything wrong right now. Well, technically that is true, but you forget that I was a Jehovah's Witness for a long time, and there's a lot of things I'm doing wrong. So, celebrating holidays, being married to an unbeliever, voting, I work at a university, I have higher education, I encourage higher education, I fail utterly at being submissive, and worst of all, I'm really independent in my thinking. And then there's the atheism. There's that too. Look, this is not how it works, y'all. That's not how any of this works. There is nothing about me that ever did or ever will fit the role that you want me to play. You need to accept me as a person, not the idea that you have in your head about who I have to be in order for you to accept me. Who do I have to pretend to be? You can't look me in the eye and tell me that you wish you could be part of my life and part of my son's life and not be confronted with the fact that you're the one who's chosen not to be. You made this choice. And how? Let's talk about this for a second. How the hell am I supposed to let you into my kids' lives, into their hearts, when I know from experience that any minute your love and your relationship could just be withdrawn, just jerked out from under them for no apparent reason? This shit hurts. This is a big deal. And I know what it feels like. And I don't think I can trust you with their hearts. Not after what you did to mine. What kind of parent would I be to risk that kind of thing? And yet, I don't want to be part of the problem and completely deny them relationships that by all rights they should have. It's my job to protect them. I don't trust you to do it. So once again, we're at an impasse. So we're a package deal, those kids and I. At least until they reach their majority, and here we are. So maybe now you understand. See, I do know right from wrong. But there's an idea among most Jehovah's Witnesses that a disfellowship person who does not come back to the witnesses does so for only a few reasons. The first, they know that the witnesses are right, but they really want to sin and fornicate and take drugs and fornicate. And did I mention fornicating? Because that's a big one. Or they know the witnesses are right, but they're too proud or too ashamed to come back and just beg for forgiveness. Or they're evil apostate devils. So, to recap, all disfellowship people are either weak, pathetic losers or they're evil incarnate. This is another false dichotomy. It leaves out the most obvious remaining options, being A, the Jehovah's Witnesses aren't right, or B, the person isn't evil, they just don't believe it. Now, if you've watched or read the news in the past few years, you've at least heard about the child molestation scandal with the witnesses. And I have no doubt, given the modest uproar over my Facebook post, which are nothing more than links to reputable news sources, folks, you already know my opinion on the matter, but I'm going to tell you again because it's too important not to. Now, I know from horrible personal experience exactly how the witnesses handle cases of child molestation, and it is not pretty. Now, there are plenty of you in my family who say that what happened to me wasn't real molestation because the abuser was still legally a minor. Way to be supportive, guys. As a parent, I will tell you this. I do not care how old the participants are. Anybody who does to my child what was done to me will have hell to pay. Seriously, there is no doubt that I would go to jail for a very, very long time. There is nothing I would not do, and no one, real or otherwise, that I would not defy to protect those kids. The truth of the matter is, though, that the witnesses handling, your handling of my situation was actually worse than the abuse itself. Because here's how I saw it. So there was me and several other minor children, not going to out them here, were victimized by a teenager. Now, I was 6 or 7. at the time. Some of the others were younger, some were older. And then, so we were blamed for this. We were grilled by the elders who were completely unqualified to deal with this type of issue over and over again, with and without our parents present. Horrible and damaging things were said. And most importantly, it was never reported to the authorities. And it should have been, both for my sake and the perpetrator's sake. See, this wasn't a one-time thing or an isolated incident, and there should have been red flags all over the place if anyone had been paying attention, because it went on for well over a year, and that is not normal. But I remember one of the brothers saying that we should not talk about it because it would bring reproach on Jehovah's name if anybody found out. All the while, the party line is that the witnesses don't have child molesters in their congregations. It just never happens. We don't do that here, right? So I learned that telling the truth is something we should do unless it might embarrass the Almighty. Yeah, a 7-year-old girl who tells the truth is an embarrassment to God. Huh? Wait a second. See, this is how my mind works. If God is supposed to be almighty, all-knowing, and all-good, then none of this should ever have happened in the first place. If he's all-powerful and all-knowing, then it shouldn't be possible to embarrass him at all. If he knew what happened and he couldn't do anything, then he's not all-powerful. And if he didn't know, then he's not all-knowing. And then if he knew about it, and he didn't do anything, even though he could have, then he's not good. Or, he's not actually there. This is what I think, right? Do you see why I can't talk to you in person? Now, for the first major part of the time in exile that I've had, I felt so alone because on some level, I believed very deeply that it was my fault. And I believe that this was an isolated situation and that it happened because something was wrong with me. Can you imagine the breakdown that I had when the first national news story broke? Can you imagine? Oh, no, you can't. Now, some of you have actually told me point blank to just get over it. Let Jehovah handle it. It's in the past. And once again, I say, how very supportive of you. So, let me get this straight. I should get over being molested and blamed for it and lied about and lied to and shunned for decades. But you can't bring yourself to get over a 20-year-old mistake and a stress-driven medical condition that had nothing to do with you. No bearing on your life whatsoever. Okay then. Yeah. So, yeah, I know right from wrong. And I miss you. I really do. I miss all of you and I love you, but I am not going to accept this bullshit any longer. This right here is me no longer consenting. Now, right now, I have a pretty awesome life, which I know is kind of hard for some of you to process. I know I was completely expected to fail. See, a lot of people self-destruct when they get disfellowshipped because they've really internalized the message that if something is wrong, it's wrong with them. It's not wrong with the organization. And the fact that I haven't crashed and burned seems to be a shock to some people. Maybe causes a little cognitive dissonance, I don't know. But I'm not going to apologize anymore for succeeding or surviving. I'm not saying I haven't made mistakes, because I have. Like I said, I've made some epically stupid choices in my life. But I learned from those mistakes. And honestly, I think I'm a pretty fun, interesting, worthy person. I'm educated, I have an interesting career, have an amazing family of my own, got awesome kids. Well, we could find plenty of common ground here. We really could, if you had the slightest interest in doing so. I don't deserve this. I'm sorry, I don't. No, I'm not sorry. I don't deserve this. I want you to understand exactly how much harm has been done here. There's been so much damage by your religion to my personal relationships with my parents, my sisters, my cousins, all of you. Even the ones who've left your faith since I did. We are so disconnected from each other that it's almost impossible to reconnect. Because you built these subconscious walls for us that are made out of distance and gossip and lies. And maybe they're not your own personal lies. Maybe they're just things that you believe sincerely that turn out not to be exactly true. But these are things that have destroyed all of the relationships in my life that are supposed to be there for you no matter what. And for that, I have to say, thanks, Watchtower. Thanks so much. A little sarcasm for you. I know that you're probably saying right now that I should not be angry with the Watchtower. And why am I so angry? Who wouldn't be angry? I'm a lot less angry than I used to be. Seriously, I am. But would you rather I be angry with you personally? Because this is wrong. And the correct response to it is anger. This is righteous indignation. It is what it is. And you know what? Even after all of this, my door's still open. I still love you, and I am not passing judgment. That is not what this is about. What I am saying here is that if what I've said has made you uncomfortable, it's probably because it should make a decent person uncomfortable. And I understand that this has been your whole life because I know exactly what it's like to be a lifelong Jehovah's Witness. I'm not asking you to abandon your faith. I'm just asking you to think and to recognize that your faith is fallible and human. I'm asking you to respect me in a basic human sense and to be reasonable. And please forgo the lectures about getting back to the truth before it's too late. I just can't anymore. So how about this? Why don't we get back together before it's too late? Because I think the real too late is coming for all of us. And it is not Armageddon. One day it really will be too late to salvage anything of our relationships. One day we'll go to each other's funerals or not, as the case may be. And we'll wish that things had been different. And right now, you're probably saying, why can't you just come back to the Kingdom Hall, since that would be so much easier for us? And the answer to that question is because I'm asking you for love and kindness and human decency, and you're asking me to live a complete and total lie in exchange for that. That's not who I am. So think about that for a second. I'm asking you for love, and you're asking me to walk away from my entire life. Think about that a second. I'll wait. Done thinking? Look, I disagree 100% with your beliefs, but I support your right to believe whatever you want to. So don't you go labeling me an apostate in an attempt to avoid the truth of what I've said here, because it's not fair and it's fundamentally dishonest. 18 years is a really long time, and we have missed a lot of things. And we've wasted a lot of time that we're never going to get back. But I still know you all well enough to know that you are not dishonest people. You're not jerks. You should know better than to behave like this. I know we don't agree. We probably never will. But guess what? We don't really need to discuss it every time we see each other. There are plenty of people, most notably my husband, awesome guy, who live perfectly acceptable and happy lives without discussing religion at all. Ever. It's just like politics. I mean, you're capable of living a life without politics. I know you are. But guess what? I like Bernie Sanders for president. I have a lot of friends who really like Trump. Ugh. I think they must be nuts on some level. But we're still friends. We still love each other. Live and let live. Would that really be a bad thing? I don't think so. I honestly don't have any interest in debating your faith one way or the other. So let sleeping dogs lie. Take religion off the table and be a family. I mean, you're better than this. I know you are. So, if you're still with me, thanks for listening. This has not been easy. If you want to talk, you know how to contact me. And if you've made it this far and you are not a Jehovah's Witness family member, well, you can't say I didn't warn you. As promised, you now know much more about me than you ever needed to, but maybe that's okay. If even one person in my family hears this message, actually hears it, it's worth it. Thanks for listening.